and served the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedoms and way of life enjoyed by our citizens. Whereas many men and women in uniform have given their lives while serving in the armed forces. Whereas citizens of our country have received the Purple Heart Medal as a result of being wounded while engaged in combat with an enemy force, construed as a singularly meritorious act of essential service. Whereas the city of the Dalles seeks to remember and recognize veterans who are recipients of the Purple Heart Medal. And now, therefore, on this 23rd day of May, I, Richard A. Mays, Mayor of the City of the Dalles, on behalf of the City Council, proclaim the City of the Dalles Purple Heart City in recognition of our community's Purple Heart Medal recipients. For me to sign with the seal. Does this take a vote of the council, or is this, okay, this is just a proclamation. I hereby declare the City of the Dalles proclamation for us being a Purple Heart City. And thank you, Councilor Runyon, for your assistance in making this a reality.
May I say one thing?
Sure.
I'm currently on a trip since the 10th of May till now. I am in Meridian, Mississippi, and I'm traveling with about 300 veterans. I'm not a veteran. This is a cause and a passion that I believe in very strongly, and this resolution the City of the Dalles is passing is high praise for our community, and I really appreciate that and all the work that went into it. Every day I'm hearing the stories of gold families and blue member families and POWs and MIAs, brothers, fathers, sisters who were lost, never returned, still being looked for. 82,000 Americans are unaccounted for around the world from all the conflicts that the United States has been involved in over many, many years. So this one singular recognition by the City of the Dalles, the City Council, is especially warming to my heart with this trip that I'm on to Washington, D.C., where I'll be visiting many of the memorials that salute our country. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know I speak for everyone in the council when I tell you that we appreciate all your efforts on behalf of veterans throughout Wasco County. Thank you, Councilor Runyon.
Thank you.
Okay, item 6 is audience participation during this portion of the meeting. Anyone may speak on any subject which does not later appear on the agenda. Up to 5 minutes per person will be allowed. Citizens are encouraged to ask questions with the understanding that the city can either answer the question tonight or refer that question to the appropriate staff member who will get back to you within a reasonable amount of time. If a response by the city is requested, the speaker will be referred to the city manager for further action. The issue may appear on a future meeting agenda for city council consideration. Is there anyone in the audience or on Zoom who would like to address the city council for up to 5 minutes? Yes. Please come forward and state your name and address, and proceed.
I have to talk in the mic, or okay. Okay. So Matthew, welcome. We are so looking forward to your energy and as city manager and your vision and your leadership. But my comment tonight really is to the city council. I just wanted to say welcome to you.
Louise, could you identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Louise Lung-Heinrich, owner of Lines of Designs, right here, 107 East 2nd Street. So what I did tonight, and I was really hoping that people on Zoom could see this, but I have a handout for the council so that you could follow along, because it might not be easy to see all this. So most of you, we've talked over the years about economic development. And so you know that's sort of a passionate subject for me is economic development. So what I did tonight is I wanted to sort of just share an observation. So what you have in front of you is basically this chart that I made. And I'm just showing between the actuals for the 19/20 fiscal year, the actuals of the 2021 fiscal year, the budget for the current fiscal year, and then the proposed budget, which actually is now made a recommendation because it came out of the budget committee process. So what I'm showing on the top line is the transit room tax and how that's gone up. So the proposal now is going up 31% from this current year to the proposed year. So it's got a nice increase. What I'm showing on the second line is the economic development budget that sits within the community development department. And that has gone down significantly. So I'm trying to figure out where is the economic development for the Dalles. And so then looking at the tourism contract with the chamber, that's gone up quite a bit. It's almost $500,000. And even if we ignore the COVID years, because that was so wonky, you can see that it's a 31.3% increase between the 19/20 fiscal year and the proposed budget, the recommended budget. So what leads me to understand that the economic development focus for the Dalles is tourism, because that's where all the money seems to be going. So I'm sure there must be some really compelling economic data, like revenues, return on investments that have been presented that you guys must have to justify this kind of proposal. I look back through some of the quarterly reports and I didn't see numbers like that, but I'm sure there must be there. And I look forward in the future quarterly reviews, seeing some numbers that justify the economic development in tourism for our community, because I can't see what else we're doing. So as I said, economic development is an issue closest to my heart. These were observations, and I look forward to seeing some of the revenues and return on investments from the tourism investment by this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments for?
I have a question.
Joanne?
Yeah, have you seen the chamber's report that they gave to us with all the data?
The report that I saw that was part of the public record is this. Is that what you're talking about? It was on the April 11th meeting. And what it says, it's their proposal, their work plan. And it does say that they will be doing quarterly reviews.
Oh, no, it's different.
Okay.
It should still be on the website.
And it
Yeah.
was a thick presentation.
Talking about during the budget meetings?
Not during budget, it was during a chamber.
Let's call Ms. Wilson. She's raising her hand as if she has something.
For the transient room tax dollars.
I
And-
got that one, I think.
In that bit, it does have the chamber's budget in there along with
Mhm.
it. And it also breaks down the, what the request is for the economic development piece and what the transient room tax dollars are going to.
Right. But if you look at that on that page, it shows all, you're talking about where that part, where the monies are going.
Yes.
Okay. So,
I think you're actually looking for something different. I think you're looking for
Yeah.
the year-end report where they talked about exactly how many contacts they had.
actually, that's not, I know, and that's what's been used in the past, like how many click-throughs, how many contacts, how many phone calls, how many packages are given out. But I'm talking about revenues, an actual return on investment where you're looking at a marketing campaign. You spend all this money, what's the return to the community? Now, I've heard it said that you can't do that. Well, that's wrong. You can do that, and if you'd like, I can get some resources, a list together for the methodology and how one calculates on, say, destination tourism. It's a little work, but you can figure it out. And I would think it'd be appropriate to figure out with this kind of monies going to that you've got some kind of return.
Councilor McLaughlin,
That's Mayor?
I thought you had your hand raised.
No, I was just, I remember that apparently is with all the clicks and the responses, yes. I remember reviewing that. And that has an impact. It tells us what the chamber is doing. It gives us some reassurances that the money is being appropriately spent. So that's what I was going to add.
So there's a difference between, they're spending that money on what they said they're spending, but then is it making an impact into our community? Are we seeing the revenues in it? Let's just give, for example, I've been on Main Street for a long time, and the funds that you give Main Street, I've been able to show the grant funding that we've brought in, to fix up the buildings downtown. So from an economic development standpoint, you can see that those funds have returned quite a bit. So I'm just curious, is there's got to be some kind of compelling information, but I look forward to seeing it in the next quarterly review.
Would you acknowledge that the increases in the transient room tax might be an indication of economic development?
Well, okay, so not 100%. I don't think that when I see the transient room tax go up, I'm not going to correlate that exactly with the tourism contract, because during COVID, even what I saw sitting at the parking lots of the hotels is you've got Union Pacific, Burlington Northern, you've got the wind companies, all their workers need to have places to stay. So are they staying in our town because of tourism? I don't think so. It's
Any
because they've
stay
got
over 30
contracts.
days doesn't pay TRT tax.
Okay, so, and I don't know what their terms are.
Yeah, so it is in the year-end report, but I would encourage you to talk with Lisa, the executive director and president of the chamber, because she can provide you with all of that. And I think also she sits on a lot of statewide boards where they talk about how to measure this kind of stuff. And I felt like we've gotten good information from her. So I would encourage you to talk to her. And then if you still think something is lacking, come back and talk with us.
Mhm.
Give me a call, talk with Matthew.
Yeah, that's fine with me, just because Travel Oregon just released their 21 report that showed the revenues coming into the different regions. And so you can see the different monies that are coming in. It's just, I'm thinking with our town, with all the economic development we need to do to make our community appealing, to bring in the businesses, that I see the economic development budget for the city dropping. And in fact, that 29,000 that's left over, 25,000 of it's Main Street for their operations. So, I think who's giving the better return, or what is the focus of our community in terms of the spending? So anyway, any other questions or comments for
Just
me?
one last comment is our new city manager, I'm sure, is going to take a look at all this economic development as a whole. The big picture, economic development, I'm sure will be forthcoming with whatever recommendations you might have. So,
Yeah, that's what we're all looking forward to.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the city council for up to 5 minutes? Yes. Oh, Ms. Ballinger. State your name and address for the record.
Colleen Ballinger, 1015 Lincoln Street. Excuse me. I'm here because I am on the St. Vincent de Paul board and on the Unhoused Task Force Committee. And I made a presentation to the task force last week that I wanted to expand a little bit because I saw the front page of the paper had 2 incidents of drug use. One, the increase in OD and the use of the Narcan. And part of my report is that my experience and the people that I get my information from, Terry McDonald and such, is that we can expect an increase in unhoused people and drug use. And so I wanted everyone to know that the St. Vincent de Paul building is trying to enforce some safety measures for our clients and for our staff. And so we will be putting up a perimeter steel fence. And the concern might be, where will those people go? And so I also share that concern. And we are focused, we felt really burnt out from the pandemic, and we felt like we were meeting the needs of everybody who came to us, but we weren't doing it as well as we wanted to. So we're focusing on the category I show you here, and that is the functionally mentally ill. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are severely mentally ill that are on our property, and we have tried all kinds of resources to get them the help they need. and there aren't facilities, there aren't staffing for facilities. We are not mental health professionals, and it's a really big challenge. I also wanted to give you a few statistics. 10 years ago, when there were single women who were the head of the household, the unhoused were 5%, and it's gone up to 47%. And these are not mentally ill people. These are people who have entered poverty. And within 6 months of living on the streets, people develop a mental illness. So I've learned all this. It's so complicated. It's not just finding a house. There's so much to this. And the person I mentioned, Terry from Eugene, he's worked with the unhoused for 50 years. And his unhoused population number in 2020 was 2,300. And this year it's 4,400. And he's a great resource. And he's invited the mayor and any of you, any of us, to come down and see what he's done. He has the full support and cooperation of the city and the county because he's really proven himself. He can make things change. There were 400 people under a bridge, and within a couple of weeks, he had 80% of them in some kind of housing. So he's a real mover and shaker. So Rich and I have met with him, and he knows there's a great resource there. And then I also want to say this is not putting any blame on any of us. This whole unhoused situation that has just blown up has shown up on the entire West Coast, and nobody expected it to be what it is now. So I hope we can all work together. That's all. So thank you.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Ballinger? Thank you very much. Does anyone else like to address the city council for up to 5 minutes? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please come forward and state your name and address.
My name is Richard Wolf, 4752 Simon Ave.
What was the street?
4752 Simon Ave.
Okay, thank you.
And do you have to live in the city to come up here and speak? Just outside city limits. I wanted to ask a question, Mayor. I haven't heard anything about the vacancy factor problem. Availability in any of the meetings. We have planners, we have real estate, we have everybody we need, but there's no mention of vacancy factor, which drives up the people can't afford the rent. Vacancy factor, shoot up the rent when there's no vacancy factor. Small towns having big problems. The zones help. There needs to be a third zone. Doesn't help those people. I got pretty close to being there myself. And there's some kind people. Help me get paperwork filled out. I have a big problem. I got jet fuel in my nose. It's on aircraft carrier. And I don't communicate real well. Why this is happening is going to be, it's relevant, it's obvious, it's not being paid attention. We need less square footage buildings, 600, 300, maybe like Waikiki. They had to deal, other small towns had to deal with the vacancy factor. When you got an influx of people coming in, bombarding you, you have no place to put your family when they graduate from high school. It's wrong. And we're paying attention to the tourists. I need a break. That's why I'm here. I need some answers. I'm just giving food for thought. I want to mention vacancy back. And I'm going to stop because I'm running myself up.
Thank you. Sir?
Yeah.
How do you define the vacancy factor? You're talking about the number of vacancies like per 100 units, rental units, or?
For a city,
Yeah.
for a state, my understanding, I'm not good at this. There's 45 million people in California, 4 million in Oregon. I would say we have a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Anyone else who would like to address the city council for up to 5 minutes? Last call. Okay, thank you very much. Item 7 on the agenda is the city manager report. Mr. Cleves.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So 1 weekend, first full week completed, and I've been settling into the new office, and we had our first leadership team meeting, which was a great opportunity to meet with our leadership team and break the ice, and talk about the different projects and initiatives that are going on throughout the city, especially for me coming out of the gate, looking at about a 90-day timeline or so, just to get a good feel for what's kind of work and projects might be coming down the pipeline. I've been setting up one-on-one department head meetings and meeting with them to dive a little bit more into the details. It's also a great opportunity to get out of my office and go see the different facilities that we have and meet staff throughout the city. I attended the unhoused task force meeting earlier on Tuesday, as well as sat in on an interview for a lateral police officer. Attended the Urban Renewal Agency meeting on Tuesday, and my compliments to the planning department staff on their hard work on a new grant program that I think another counselor will dive a little bit more in the details on. Like I said, I'm drinking from the proverbial fire hose, but it was a very interesting and very fascinating first week. Thrilled to be here, thrilled to be working with the team that we have. And one of the other items I wanted to mention is that we'll be submitting, or I have submitted, a letter of support to MCED's grant application to Business Oregon's Regional Innovation Hub Planning Grants, which is part of Business Oregon's 10-year strategic plan to establish these innovation hubs, these cross-connection nexus points, I guess you could say, to bring every different kinds of support, from financial to mentorship to prototype or testing for different traded sector companies that we have throughout the state. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. City council reports. Let's start with Zoom and Councilor Richardson. You got to be unmuted, Dan.
Thank you. Very short report. I attended the Urban Renewal Agency meeting last week and had a couple of conversations with folks on a couple of topics that will probably take up in weeks to come, but not tonight. And that's my meeting. That's my report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I see Councilor Runyon has temporarily left his seat, and so we'll come back to him later. Councilor Randall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last Saturday, I attended the, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, the Wild West Apex Pro Bass Fishing Tournament here in the Dalles. And just as an example of how the chamber is involved in promoting tourism, that was a group of professional bass fishermen here in town with their boats and trucks, spending money at the hotels, the bars, the restaurants, getting services, bait, tackle, et cetera. So I know it's anecdotal, but Louise, she's still here, kind of to address her concern about what the chamber is doing as far as promoting tourism. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Councilor Runyon, you ready to go?
Sure. Well, what I've been doing is not really locally. It is local in its own way, because it affects all veterans around this country and those around the world. I'm on a trip started in California into Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. Currently, I'm in Meridian, Mississippi, here to promote healing among all veterans and their families and friends, to call for an accounting of all prisoners of war and those missing in action, POW, MIA, to honor the memory of those killed in action, KIA, from all wars, and to support our military personnel all over the world. It's a trip of listening and learning, talking to family members. Probably half of those that are on this trip are veterans themselves in past conflicts. We have active duty with us as well, but we also have sons, daughters, mothers, wives of veterans along on this trip. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to bring back to our county and to our state. And thank you for allowing me the time.
Thank you. Councilor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I attended 2 committees on behalf of the city. I attended the Traffic Safety Committee as the liaison from the City Council. And we discussed a lot of different things going on, but the ones that are actually come out of that rather than go back to staff for more information would be that we can expect a lot of road maintenance throughout the summer. They're going to be doing some chip sealing, which of course is the loose rock. So do watch out for that at approximately the 3rd week in June. They're also doing some sewer pipe replacement and various other things. So you'll see a lot of work keeping our roads up to date. Also, we've had quite the report of a lot of graffiti. So the codes enforcement is asking that if you see any graffiti, that you report it to codes enforcement immediately. The sooner we get it taken down and cleaned up, the less likely they are to continue tagging and make an even bigger mess. Apparently there's been quite a bit along the riverfront trail as well on the rocks. So we need people to report that to us. And in the Urban Renewal Agency meeting, we did approve our budget for the year. And we also approved our incentive program, which is quite a bit different than what we've done in the past. Director Alice Cannon led us with that and had a consultant. I think she came up with some really great ideas. And then the board also put their own touches on it. And if you have an interest in urban renewal and those grant funds, I would encourage you to read the proposal. It's fairly simple and straightforward. And I think you're going to see quite a bit of difference with urban renewal now than you have over the past few years. I think you can expect to see a dramatic difference downtown. We're going for things that really make a difference and increase our value of our streets and reduce blight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor McLaughlin.
Well, I've spent a considerable amount of time with the airport, either as a commissioner or working towards developing. The contract will be up for renewal next year, and we're looking at evaluating that contract and making improvements. I've also done drop-bys to St. Vincent's. Without St. Vincent's for the last how many years, we would have had people die. And I just appreciate all that everyone associated with that program has done over the years. So thank you very much. I'm doing ongoing connections with the police, talking about, well, shopping carts is one thing, and then animal control vehicle and other assorted things. So just keeping the lines of communication open. I have been in touch just recently with Brian Jarl from representing the family that's selling property surrounding the airport. And there is movement ahead for a development and a golf course. Those 2 things are still on the table. I did last Friday stop by Fort Dalles Museum for a walkthrough. I'd not been into where they have the vehicles down in the lower section. It's amazing. I'd like to also say Loyal Quackenbush. His footprint is everywhere around the museum, and he has spent, along with some other folks, making improvements and doing it on his own dime. That's pretty impressive, and I just want to thank Loyal and his group for what they've done. That museum is really well put together. It should be a pride, and it is a pride for our community. And so I recommend stopping by and checking out the Fort Dalles Museum. That's my report.
Thank you, Councilor. As far as the mayor's report goes, I gave my usual monthly interviews to KODL and KACI radio. I also gave presentations on what's going on with the city to the Dalles Lions Club, the local chapter of Protect Oregon's Progress, and the Governmental Affairs Committee last Thursday. And I also attended the same thing Council Randall, well, actually an offshoot of what Council Randall was alluding to. I gave a welcoming address to the fishermen who had collected at the Portage Grill a week ago Saturday. I also addressed the 25th anniversary celebration at the Discovery Center. Speaking of museums, another gem in the city in a beautiful setting. We celebrated their 25th anniversary on Saturday. And I also addressed, along with the school superintendent, every member of the Dalles High School attended an assembly where the superintendent and I celebrated a couple of dozen of the students who had made decisions about their future, whether that future included college or trade school or joining the workforce. And we actually had 3 that have decided to join the U.S. Navy. And we appreciate their service as well. So that was a very educational endeavor as well. And I believe that is it for me. Thank you. Number 9 is the consent agenda. Items of a routine and non-controversial nature are placed on the consent agenda to allow the city council to spend its time and energy on the important items and issues. Any counselor may request an item be pulled from the consent agenda and be considered separately. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be placed on the agenda at the end of the action items section. Tonight, we have 3 items on the consent agenda. First, the approval of the minutes from May 9th. That reminds me, excuse me, to thank Councilor Richardson for filling in for me last month, but we do have those minutes for your approval. Item B is a concurrence with my reappointment of Philip Mosher to the Plan Commission, and C is a resolution adopting the aforementioned job description for our police chief. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
There's just one typo. Call to order. Meeting was called to order by Mayor Mays. You were gone. I called it to order at 5:30. Just a small, and then it will stand as written.
Can you make a motion?
Yes, I'll make the motion to approve
I'll second it.
It's been moved by
as
Council-
amended.
Yes, it's been moved by Councilman McLaughlin, seconded by Councilman Randall to approve the consent agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 10A is a contract with the Dog River Pipeline Replacement Construction. With that happy news, we have our Director of Public Works present, Mr. Dave Anderson.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of council. Didn't know if I would ever see this day. We still have a long ways to go, but just by way of review, this Dog River Pipeline replacement project will replace a now 110-year-old wooden pipeline located in the Forest Service that currently supplies over half of the city's annual water supply. And the replacement is necessary to maintain the integrity, the reliability, and the resiliency of the city's water supply system. With your indulgence, I'll just touch on a couple of the benchmarks or achievements of what has been accomplished to bring us to this point today. The city submitted a proposed action to the Forest Service in 2010, and we received a decision notice from them authorizing the project 10 years later in 2020 with a concurrence from the National Marine Fisheries of the findings of that notice. The city awarded a professional services contract to Jacobs Engineering Group in April of 21 to conduct the design engineering for the project. We have submitted applications to a total of, I believe, 6 different agencies for around 12 different permits. We have nearly all of those permits in hand. We have completed the procurement of 13,000 feet of pipe, which will support construction during this first year of construction, 2022. That pipe's currently being stored on the Port of the Dalles property on a parcel that the city is leasing. We awarded a contract to Wise Timber Services to serve as the city's timber management consultant related to the clearing and removal of the trees throughout the project area. At our last meeting, we awarded a contract to Bounds Excavation Incorporated to do the needed timber removal work for the project. We have amended the professional services contract with Jacobs to provide the engineering services during construction. And after the award of a contract tonight, if that should happen, there would be one more contract to award later this year or early next year, which would provide for the construction of the fish passage and screening systems, which are still currently under design. With consideration of the contract before you tonight, the total project budget is just over $13 million. We have funded the project with a combination of city utility rate revenues, city water system development charges, plus $9,030,000 in outside funding. That outside funding is made up of a $1 million grant from the Oregon Water Resources Department, a forgivable loan, which is essentially a grant in terms of the way it functions, for another $530,000, and a long-term low-interest loan of $7.5 million. The pipeline that would to be constructed is about 3.5 miles long. It's a forested and challenging environment. It's expected to take 2 seasons to complete, and it's also expected that a selected contract will probably have to use multiple work crews working concurrently on different sections of the pipe to complete it within those 2 years. There's a possibility that the construction schedule could be adversely impacted if we have a bad fire season and restrictions are put on work on the forest. So we're trying to keep that in consideration and mitigate for that to the extent that we can. Any in-stream work for the project, and there are 2 elements that require work in the stream, has to occur during the designated in-stream work periods of July 15th through August 31st, which is just an additional element that needs to be considered in the scheduling of the project. And we've established that we need to complete the project by December 31st, 2023, per the terms of that $1 million grant that we received from Oregon Water Resources Department. We developed a construction contract bid packet. We utilized pre-qualification process to make sure that only qualified firms were able to submit on the project. We ultimately received 4 bids. The lowest bid for that project, or excuse me, lowest bid for the contract was received from K&E Excavating at $5,890,550. That bid from K&E Excavating was deemed to be responsive. Following the award of this contract, city staff and Jacobs will work with the contracted construction firm to schedule a groundbreaking ceremony that we will be inviting to the city council to as we get those details pulled together. In terms of budget, within Fund 53, the Water Reserve Fund, we've allocated $11,201,726 in the current fiscal year for the project. The engineer's estimate for this contract was $9,470,000. The bid from K&E is well below that engineer's estimate, and there are funds available for this project. With that, it's staff's recommendation that the city council move to authorize the city manager to enter into contract with K&E Excavating in an amount not to exceed $5,890,550 for contract number 2022-001, the Dog River Pipeline Replacement Construction Contract.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Any questions or comments? I have, tell us what a qualified firm would be.
For this project, we established pre-qualification criteria where they had to demonstrate, I think there was 3 different things to us. One, they had to demonstrate they had experience working in a challenging environment. They had to demonstrate that they had successfully completed projects that were at least 3,000 feet in length and involving pipe 24 inches in diameter or greater. Our pipe is going to be 30-inch diameter. And they had to demonstrate they had successfully completed projects using high-density polyethylene pipe, HDPE pipe, which is the type we're going to use, and the butt fusing or butt welding techniques that are specified for this project. after demonstrating all three of those things and attending the mandatory pre-bid meetings and pre-bid site tour, a firm could be deemed to be qualified to submit a bid.
Where's Katie out of?
They are out of, oh my gosh, Salem, I think. I gotta remember to look that up. Yeah, that's the second time you've asked me on that. Is it? So, yeah.
This is obviously a very celebratory day to award this bid. And my congratulations to you and your staff for all the hard work. Looking forward to the groundbreaking.
Thank you.
It's nice to know we have a really good firm doing the work since they were well under the second highest bid.
Yeah. And we also, in addition to the formal pre-qualification and after the fact, we learned Jacobs Engineering, our design engineer, has worked with K&E on a number of projects. So there's already a good working relationship established there. They've also, some of those projects have been on the coast. These are pipeline projects. And they apparently are a successful contractor for the city of Bend as well.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
None.
I have one, Mr. Mayor.
Council Richardson.
Thank you. So Dave, this, Director Anderson, this bid is, I mean, it's great news. The engineer's estimate was 9.5. The bid is just under 6. Does that mean the total project budget of 13.5 or so million dollars might actually come in at closer to 10?
No, the 13 million included this bid price.
Okay, very good. Follow-up question on that. Given that it came in this $3.5 million under the estimate, would it be reasonable for us to be looking at knocking some money off of that low interest loan, paying off the principal, paying it off early, or declining to take out the full 7.5 million?
Yeah, that would be our approach.
Great.
We will only use as much of the loan as we need. And I think that'll, without having yet talked to the new city manager about this, but the finance director and I have discussed opportunities to look at, continue to look at other available city resources and minimize the utilization of the loan.
This seems like a great deal. Are we missing anything? Or do you feel really solid about it? About the
like I say, we have a good comfort level with the firm. They're experienced in doing this type of work. I've had enough conversation with them that they've shared with me. They feel good about the bid. We have not yet, the project was bid as a lump sum price with some assumed quantities in there, or estimated quantities, I should say, by the engineer. So we aren't anticipating, any surprises. We have not, though, yet, since it was bid as lump sum, we haven't really received the contractor's bid schedule for, the unit costs for everything, which will be one of the first deliverables once we have a contract in place. And then we'll actually have the information to see where the deviations between the engineer's estimate and the contractor's bid exist.
Yeah. Very good. Well, this is exciting. Thanks for all of your work on this.
Thank you.
You and I have talked about this before. Maybe you could explain with the when this project is completed and when the 2 new data centers will go online and the improvements we're making to our water system by virtue of these 2 things, where our water system is going to be standing.
Well, we're just about ready to issue an RFP for an update to our water master plan. And 18 months from now, I'll have really good answers for you on that. That water master plan will take everything that you just described as a starting point for an evaluation of the rest of the water system and, its condition, its resiliency to, seismic is going to be a big thing that we haven't looked at a lot in the past. We've only looked at it for some of our reservoirs. We haven't looked at it for the treatment plant or the pipes. And that's going to be a big part of our water master plan evaluation. And that will come up with the next list of projects for the next 20 years.
Thank you. Anybody else? Looking for a motion. Councilor McLaughlin.
Gives me great deal of pleasure to move to authorize the city manager to enter into contract with K&E Excavating in an amount not to exceed $5,890,550 for contract number 2022-001, the Dog River Pipeline Replacement Construction Contract.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councilor McLaughlin, seconded by Councilor Richardson to approve the construction contract for the Dog River Pipeline. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
very much, Mr. Mayor. Item 11A. CIS insurance renewal. Renewal. We have our human resources representing 100 years of the report. And I'll introduce the manager of the times.
Different insurance agency.
Yeah, I'm saying which she wants to see.
Yeah, Brianna's our workers' comp insurance agent. Mike Lipke, I believe, is on the Zoom meeting. He's with Oregon Trail. He's our insurance agent of record for general liability, property, and auto.
Thank you.
So some of this information is going to be redundant or additional to what you received during the budget hearing. In short, there's a significant increase from last year, which was also a significant increase from the year prior. And one of the significant changes for us as far as coverage goes is CIS has changed the way that they've structured the cybersecurity insurance. We looked at this 2 years ago because the requirements to get excess cyber through CIS had changed, and some of the requirements to get that excess cyber would have entailed the city changing our internal systems, which would have cost well over $100,000 at that time. I believe Patty Salmon, our IT manager, is looking into what it would cost now. At the time we switched from CIS to BCS for excess cyber, we received word this year that BCS is no longer going to cover ransomware attacks. So we switched back to CIS, or recommending switching back to CIS for our cyber coverage. And the structural change that CIS made was they took the blanket cyber insurance coverage and put that in with the general liability coverage rather than having it separated out as separated coverage. And so the base coverage isn't the dollar amount that we were typically getting with the excess cyber. It is providing us with some coverage. The excess cyber question, I guess, will be answered throughout the next few months, and looking at what it will cost us to put in place the requirements for CIS to have that coverage with them next year. So at this point, with CIS, we're looking at just the blanket coverage that's included in the general liability. And so on the whole, staff's recommendation is that we approve the insurance agreement with CIS and go through for another year. Council does have some other options. I will tell you the one option for investigating options of being self-insured is going to be costly and would increase our liability just due to the simple fact is we wouldn't have a risk pool to be in. It would just be us, and we'd have to front the money in some sort of reserve fund in order to pay the claims. But it's on there for an option.
Any questions for Mr. Hunter? Would like to make a motion?
Mayor Mays, I'll move to authorize the city manager to renew the city insurance with CIS for FY 22-23 in an amount not to exceed $492,250.45.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Moved by Council Randall and seconded by Council Long to authorize the city manager to renew the city's insurance package with CIS for fiscal year 23. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Finally, we have item 12A, which is a discussion item. This is legal service background.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. Just a little bit of more information in my haste to get this out to councils. Some of the numbers were not computing, and that was pointed out to me by several staff after it was sent out. My haste in getting it out was because we're considering budget next meeting, and I wanted council to have it in front of them before we got to that point. So summarizing, I guess, the overall differences in what was sent out to what actually is. As I said in my email last Friday, there are 55,000 that was in the contractual services that was taken out by the budget committee. So that reduced that amount. The overall personnel services, material services, actually just over 25,000 more than it would be if the city continued to contract out. And relative to other budgets, it is about 9,000 more than the HR department budget.
I don't see that being inconsistent with what I have provided with the city council. Talking to our former city in probably February, June.
I guess I should have talked to you before I did this.
I thought it was anywhere inconsistent, dramatically inconsistent with somebody else.
My only concern was how much money we would save or cost, and what's the bottom line?
So really the bottom line, as far as maybe HR's perspective on this, is it's going to be a little over 25 grand more to have the convenience of having an in-house attorney that's only working for the city of the Dalles on the city of the Dalles legal matters. Readily accessible to the city manager and staff as well as council. The need to go to outside counsel for conflicts goes away because there's no longer any conflict when we have an in-house attorney. So it's, I guess, on balance, up to individual counselors whether they feel that $25,000 more is a fair cost to pay for having that convenience.
Also, for adding the legal services to the leadership team, I think it's good compensation. It's, in my opinion, it hasn't changed my direction. So I'm in favor of moving forward still.
Any other comments? I wasn't here last meeting, but I was not here for about a week, but my understanding is that the city council has basically approved this. Anybody objects or not say something, please let me know. I also understand that the new city manager matters contract with city attorney.
Correct. Yes, that was the outcome.
Okay. We need a motion for any reason?
Discussion item.
What's that?
It's just a discussion item.
Oh, he can't say.
That's his one and only conflict.
Well, then I'll make a motion.
Okay, so someone should make a motion to approve the transition from the city attorney working from as an independent contractor for a city employee and to direct the mayor and city manager to negotiate a contract consistent. Is that
Sorry, Mr. Mayor,
But
are we allowed to make a motion and act on this if it's a discussion item only?
I didn't hear that.
Yes.
Yeah, the question was, are we allowed to make a motion on the discussion?
You're not, generally, you're not required to, it's a discussion only item, so you're not required to make a decision. But in this case, I feel like we are better off having a formal motion, giving direction to staff before you approve the budget.
Thank you.
Unless we have some sort of rule to the contrary, I would agree with the city clerk. So with that, since I can't make a motion, I will ask in this speech someone here to make a motion. Consistent with what I said.
I can do it.
Councilor Long. So
Test.
moved.
It's a test.
Can't say so moved. I know it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I move that staff moves forward with bringing the attorney's office back in-house, and that the mayor and the city manager negotiate the contract for the new city attorney. And what was the other piece? Does that cover it? Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll go ahead and second that. Yes.
Moved by Councilor Long and seconded by Councilor McLaughlin to affect the transition of outside counsel to inside counsel and to direct the city manager and mayor to negotiate said contract. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. Looking forward to working with you in house. Okay. Any other business to come before the city council?
Been fine.
With that, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much for coming.
Boy, you wrote to me. Yeah. he's Planning to visit in July, but mom is acting strange. So I thought I'd call you to get some contact.
Record.